again, my little yarnivores and spiderettes. Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. And today we have got ourselves some Tunisian crochet work. This is the honeycomb stitch. Absolutely love it. It's really quite simple, and the best part is, unlike most Tunisian stitching, this does not curl whatsoever. It's fabulous. And because it is worked on the bias, it does have a slightly asymmetric shape. It actually starts at this point here, and it keeps growing out. And it is very, 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 very simple. So actually, it's worked like this, back and forth in rows, and it is a dream. Now, this video is sponsored by Lion Brand. Thank you very much, Lion Brand. And the yarn that we are using today, well, that I used for this project anyway, is Lion Brand Ice Cream. And this is the colorway of coffee. And I used 2 skeins of this yarn for this shawl. And so the specifications for this, it's 3.5 ounces, 394 yards, and it is 100% acrylic, so it is machine washable and dryable. It's a weight of 3, so when you're doing Tunisian crochet, you want to go up at least a hook size or more. I like to go up 2 hook sizes when doing Tunisian work. So instead of using a size H, which is what I would usually use for this weight of yarn, it's just me personally, I used a size J, which is a 6mm hook. Now, I also did some work on a scarf, which I absolutely love. Now, this is the same stitch, but worked back and forth in rows evenly. And this is Lion Brand's Pound of Love in the colorway of Honeybee. I thought, how appropriate, right? Now, because this weight of yarn is a little bit thicker, I used a size, what is it, looking here? This is a size K, a 6.5mm hook. And so, yeah, you want to go up 2 hook sizes so that the fabric has a nice drape, has a nice flow to it, and also that will help it prevent it from curling even more so. So you are actually going to get a twofer today. I'm going to show you how to work this stitch in rows like this, and then also how to work the stitch where you have an increase going on so that you can make this awesome sauce shawl. So without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty, so for those of you that may not be familiar with Tunisian crochet, you are going to need a Tunisian crochet hook, which is basically an elongated hook, whether it is a solid hook or an interchangeable like this one by Xiaogu. So if you're doing, say, a scarf, you can use a regular length hook, no problem. If, however, you are doing the shawl, you are going to need one with a long cord, preferably, I would say at least 22 inches in length so that you can fit all of your stitches onto the cord. Now, we're going to start off with how you would work a scarf, okay? Or something of that sort in straight rows where you have it's squared off. And this is Lion Brand's Pound of Love in the colorway of denim. And the initial chain count really doesn't matter how many chains, even, odd, whatever multiple, does not matter. And so I'm going to chain up, say, I don't know, maybe like 10 or 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 is good. Okay, now there are several ways that you can go about picking up your stitches. You can go through what I like to call the top of the V, which is underneath there. Now, most people, when doing Tunisian crochet, they go underneath the back bump. So it's this little bump right there, and that is another way of doing it. Personally, I think that going underneath the top of the V is just fine, because this piece, it's not inclined to curl as it is. So I'm just going to pick up my loop, going into the next chain, and pick up a loop, and then under the next chain, pick up a loop, pick up a loop, and because we did 10 chains, we should have 10 loops on our hook by the time we reach the end. And then one more. Okay, so we have 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to do the standard return pass, which is to pull up a loop, and then going to pull through 2, and then pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, all the way to the beginning. Pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And there you go. And so that is going to get us started for the actual pattern of the honeycomb stitch. Okay, so for the first actual row of the pattern, going to go not underneath this front bar, but the next front bar. Go underneath that bar and pick up a loop, and that is a Tunisian standard stitch, or a Tunisian simple stitch. Now the next one is going to be a purl stitch, and it's going to create a little purl bump. So to do a purl stitch, bring the yarn to the front, and then go underneath that bar, and then bring the yarn down to the front, so it's going across in front of the bar, and then pull your yarn through. So you've got a little bar of yarn in front there. Then the next one is going to be a regular Tunisian simple stitch. So just go underneath the bar and pull up a loop. Next one, yarn to the front, go in, yarn down, and then pull through. Simple stitch next. Yarn to the front, under the bar, yarn down, and pull up a loop. Simple stitch next. Then another purl stitch, so yarn to the front, under the bar, and down, and pull up a loop. And we've reached the very end. Now, you may be inclined to just go underneath that one loop. No, you want to go underneath both loops at the end. Otherwise, the end will look a little bit sloppy. So go underneath both of those loops at the end and pull up a loop. There we go. So we've reached the very, very end. So to make the return pass, chain up 1, and then pull through 2, and pull through 2, and pull through 2, 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 and pull through 2. So that is one complete row. Now, if you look closely, you can see that these bars are sort of both vertical, and this one, it's got a little bit of a bump in the front. And then these are vertical. This one's got a bump in front, and vertical, and a bump in front, vertical, and a bump in front. And those bumps are the purl stitches. Now on the next row, we're going to alternate that. So in a sense, it's sort of like doing the seed stitch or the granite stitch, if you will, where we're basically just alternating and staggering our stitches. So let's get into it. Okay, so for the second row, we have to alternate what we did from the first one. So we started with a simple stitch, which means that we have to start now with a purl stitch. So bring the yarn to the front and then go underneath that bar, yarn to the front, and then pull up a loop. And then we need to do a simple stitch, and then a purl stitch again, because whenever you see the vertical bars, you need to do a purl stitch. So yarn to the front, into the bar, and then pull up a loop. And then when you see the bump, then you need to do a simple stitch. So you're just pulling up a loop. And then yarn to the front, and under the bar, pull up a loop, simple stitch, yarn to the front, into the bar, pull up a loop, and then that last one, you need to do a regular simple stitch, so pull up a loop. And then last but not least, at the very, very end on that edge, go underneath both of those loops and pull up a loop. Okay, and then for the return pass, as always, going to chain up 1 and pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and so forth all the way to the beginning. And there you go. So let's do this a couple of times, shall we? I really want to make sure that you guys got it. Okie dokie. So this first stitch, that's got the bump, which means it's a purl. So we have to start off with a simple stitch. So just going underneath that bar and pulling up a loop. Next stitch, they're vertical, which means we need a purl stitch. So yarn to the front, under the bar, yarn down, pull up a loop, and then that one has the bump, so simple stitch. Just go under the bar, pull up a loop. They're vertical, so you need a purl stitch. To the front, under the bar, down, pull up a loop. There's a bump, so we need a simple stitch. Just pull up a loop. Vertical, so we need a bump, which means we need a purl, yarn to the front, under the bar, and down, pull up a loop. We have a bump, which means a simple stitch is needed, so under the bar, pull up a loop, and then we need a purl at the end. So to the front, and through, and down, and pull up a loop, and then we have reached the end. So be sure to go underneath both of those loops at the edge there and pull up a loop. There we go. So again, for the return pass, chain up 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, and 2, 2, 2, and so forth. Alrighty, you can already see the texture starting to pop. Absolutely love it. And the back does not look the same, but it does look just as nice, and it also has a nice sort of squishy texture. This is also a very, very nice, thick, dense stitch, although, as you can see, it's really quite flexible. All right, so let's do another row together, shall we? So, as you can see, also, if you look at the other stitches, sometimes it's easier than trying to pick out this first one. See, like we have a bump here, which means that this stitch, if you look closely, you can see that the stitches are vertical, which means we need to start off with a bump, a purl stitch. So yarn to the front, go under the bar, down, and pull up a loop. Then we have a bump, so simple stitch, going under, pulling up a loop, no bump. All right, so we need a bump. To the back, and under, front, and pull through. Simple stitch, then purl stitch, and then a simple stitch, and then a purl stitch, and then a simple stitch. And then at the end, go through both loops and pull up a loop. And then, of course, as per usual, chain up a loop, and then through 2, through 2, through 2, through 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. And there you go. And the bind off I will show you later after I finish showing you how to do the increasing so that you can make this into a shawl. Alrighty, so let's continue on with increasing so I can show you how to do the shawl. Alrighty, let's go. Alrighty, so again, if you're going to be doing the shawl, you are going to need a Tunisian hook with a long cord. Not necessarily initially, but as you pick up more and more and more stitches, you are going to need a longer cord. So just letting you know that now before we go any further. So to begin with, for the triangular shawl, going to do our slip knot and only going to start off with chaining of 2. That's all. 1 and 2. And then going to go into that first chain and pick up a loop. We had 2 chains, we've got 2 loops. So going to do the return pass. So chain up 1 and then pull through 2. That's it. That's it for the first, row and return. Quite simple, right? Okay, now the increase, I've seen a lot of different increases, okay? This one I find works out really, really simple, and I like it, and I hope it is acceptable to you. So for my version of the increase, going to chain up 1 and go underneath this first bar on the edge and pick up a loop. And then, well, we've reached the end, so going to go underneath both loops on that edge and pick up a loop. So we started with 2, now we've got 3. We can cinch that a little bit. So we now have 3 loops. So chain up 1, then pull through 2, and pull through 2. Alrighty, so we've got 3 stitches and we are good to go for now. Alrighty, so now to start the actual honeycomb pattern, it's really quite simple because instead of alternating the beginnings of the rows, actually every beginning of the row, it's going to be exactly the same, which is an extra bonus if you ask me. So going to start the row by chaining up 1, and then go underneath the bar of that first stitch, pull up a loop, and then because this stitch has no bump, we need a bump. So bring the yarn up, go underneath the bar and down, and pull up a loop. And then we've already reached the end, so go underneath both of those loops at the edge and pull up a loop. So we've got 4 stitches. So we have our increase, a regular, a purl, and the edge stitch. So chain up 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Okay, next row. Chain up 1, pull up a loop under that first bar, and if you look closely, you can see, well, we've got a bump here, but we don't have a bump here. So we need a bump. So yarn to the back, underneath that bar, yarn to the front, pull up a loop. Okay, here we have the bumps. We need a regular Tunisian simple stitch. So under the bar, pull up a loop, and then at the edge, go underneath both of those loops, pull up that loop. So we've got 5. So we're increasing 1 stitch every forward pass. So for the back pass, chain up 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, through 2, and through 2. Okay, let's keep going. Let's do a bunch more rows because this is really simple and it works up fast actually. So chain up 1, pull up a loop under the first bar, and we need to start with our purl because we've got our vertical. So to the back and down, pull up a loop. Got the bump, so simple stitch, pull up that loop. They're vertical, so to the back and down and pull up a loop. And then we're at the edge already, so go underneath both, pull up a loop, chain up 1, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. So you can see we already have a triangle forming. It's a beautiful thing. All right, let's do it again. Going to chain up 1, go underneath the first bar, pull up a loop, and if you're ever stuck, you just look at your stitches. Got a bump here, vertical here, so we need that bump. Yarn to the back, under the bar, down, pull up a loop. We've got a bump, so simple stitch, no bump, so we need a purl to the back, under, down, pull up a loop. Got a bump, so simple stitch. And then at the edge, go underneath both loops and pull up a loop. See, we already have 7 stitches. Pull up a loop and then through 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. Let's do another one. Chain up 1 underneath the bar of the first, and then purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, and edge stitch. Chain up 1 and through 2 all the way to the end. Chain up 1, pick up that loop on the edge, purl, simple, purl, simple, purl, simple, and edge stitch. Chain up 1, pull through 2, through 2, through 2, through 2, and so forth. Okay, let's do another one. Chain up 1, pull up a little loop at the edge, start with the purl, and simple, and purl, and simple, and purl, and simple, and purl, and edge stitch at the end, and then do the return pass as per usual. And right now we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 already. Goes fast. So chain up 1 and then through 2 all the way to the end. And that is really how you work the honeycomb stitch, regardless of, what shape you're going for, whether it's a square, a rectangle, or a triangle. That's how you work the stitch. It's a matter of doing a simple stitch above the purls and purls above the simple stitches. It's really, really quite easy once you get the hang of it. I would say ultimately it is a project that you can get lost in, but you do want to be a little bit mindful of what you're doing. Just sort of try to get yourself into the groove and the rhythm of alternating back and forth between the stitches. Other than that, it's a very simple repeat to follow. So now I'm going to show you how to do the bind off. Okay, so the bind off, really, it's the same whether you're doing the shawl or a scarf or a blanket or what have you. It's very quite easy. So I'm going to go underneath, not this first bar, but underneath this second bar, and pull up a loop, and then pull this loop through this loop. And then going underneath the second loop, the second bar, then pulling up a loop and pull that loop through the one that's already on the hook. There we go. And then go into the next bar. Pull up a loop and then pull it through the one that's already on the hook. Going into the next bar, pulling through and through. Next bar, pull through and through the next bar, through and through, into the next bar, through and through, through and through, and then at the edge, same thing, going underneath both of those loops at the edge there, through and through. And then, of course, you can cut your yarn, pull out your loop, and sew in your end. And there you go. And so if you're doing a shawl, just keep going until you run out of yarn or it is as big as you want it to be. Now, like I said before, if you're doing the shawl, it is slightly asymmetric. So this side is going to be a little bit longer, which actually I kind of like the feature because when you have it draped over your shoulders, this one is easier to flop around to the back, or you can flop it up to the front and pin it. I kind of like the feature, actually. Not everything has to be symmetric and perfect in that regard. But when you are putting it on, I would say try to line up the point with the middle of your waist. You know, that's just me personally. So, that being said, that concludes our tutorial for today. So listen, everybody, I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And again, a big old thank you to Lion Brand for sponsoring this video. And whether you plan on making a scarf, a blanket, or a shawl, I'm sure that you will make something fabulous. Hope you like this stitch. I, for one, love it. Give it a try, see what you think. So, you know what to do until next time, right? I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, stay stitching, and please stay safe. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now, everybody, and have a great day.